So but the last thing I've got to do on my enlarger is the print tray at the bottom here. So it's going to be 5x7, and I've allowed myself a little bit of a trim around there. That's going to hold the paper in place. If it's a little bit tight, I cut a little groove at this end so I can pick the paper up to get it out. And I did have the idea that I'd put a printing frame edge round it, much as if you're using a masking easel. So I built this bit of timber, and that should drop round there. I've got to work out the measurements yet, but that should just sort of sit round there. What's going to hold into place? Some of the little bits of timber. Now this is amazing, because when I set out to make this, I hadn't allowed for these measurements for this to go in. So for it to turn out like this is serendipitous again. Right, there we go. So all I've got to do now is to work out exactly where that little frame wants to sit. It might be slightly forward, it might be slightly to the left. So all I need to do is draw a line around here and then place it back in again. And then that should be my frame finished. We're still in winter at the moment, so I'm just warming up my trays before I put the chemistry in. I'm only going to be doing a short exercise, otherwise I'd have them on a heated tray, but just warming the trays up for a start. You're always rocking for the prints to either put it in the stop bath in the developer, and then I came up with an idea. Why don't I have some sort of offset cam at one end with a small motor that can rock all three at once? And wait a minute, there must be a simpler way around it, and there is. All I've got here is a small piece of wood underneath here that runs the length. I just fix this little knob here, and I pick that up, and I've got all three rocking. So simple, so simple. Right, we've got everything ready to go. Remember, I can actually alter the calibration if I needed to by either adjusting the lens, the position of the lens. I can screw it down tighter, or I can have a small slip in where the negative goes. That'll adjust that area. Or what I have done is to put a small piece of paper under the paper that I'm going to put in. I'm going to check it once more with my focus finder. That's why I left this window here. There's also another bonus with that, I'll tell you in a moment. So if I just check that, I can see that that is about as sharp as I'm going to get it. I'm putting my focus finder window cover back on. I don't need to reset it anymore, it's calibrated, so that's okay. I never throw anything away. This old clock, the hour hand fell off, so I took the minute hand off, and then I ended up with a darkroom timer. Things you get on Amazon and eBay. I wanted this little switch mainly because when you turn it on, there's a little illuminated light comes on there. £1.67, and it's really well made inside. Right, let's do our very first experiments with this new enlarger. Right, so that's my paper gone in there. I'm going to use this jobo exposure sheet, and that goes in little increments, and that'll be able to get the time right when I need to do it. So that's gone in there well, and clip the top down. It's a bit fiddly. I think I'd actually design it with a drawer if I was to do it all over again. Okay, I've done one already, and basically that was 10 seconds, so I've cut it down, so this one test piece is now 5 seconds, so we'll see how that goes. Give it a gentle rock. She's in. It should start coming any second now. Here it is. I don't know if you can see it. It's coming into view. Remember to fully develop this, because if you snatch it, then you'll never get your exposure right. So that's coming quite well. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. That's coming okay. Have a look. So it looks like it's only going to take probably a 2-second exposure. That's going to be difficult, so I'm going to have to count that in. I haven't got a timer rigged up to it. 1000, 2000, 3000. You see that little bit of a white flash there, so it's a good job I put my front cover back on, otherwise there'd be a bit of a light bouncing around. Maybe, I don't know, it could have reflected off of anything, but it's a good job I put the cover on first. There we go. That's not bad. First attempt. It's a little bit thin, but I'm very pleased with it. It's really crisp. It's really crisp. I know it's got to be dry before we can judge that, but believe me, it's crisp. So this is a method of developing a print, but I chose to do it like this through necessity. I used a large brush and I was printing them 20 inches wide and 4 foot length. It was the quickest and easiest way, but it soon became my trademark. So this is basically all I did. I put on the developer with a brush, and then you can see the areas slowly starting to develop, and hopefully what you want is just that center bit. It's starting to come. Here we go. This also warms up the paper just by friction, so some areas can develop quicker than others. And see it coming? Then there becomes a part where I sort of say, yeah, that'll do me, that's fine, and then just leave the rest. As long as I've got main part of the subject. And in the fashion days, obviously, the dress. But there you go. Simple, but born out of necessity. Okay, the finished thing. This is my basic one that we started off with, the test strip. And you can see the graduation there. And about 3 seconds is probably what I needed for the exposure. So we did an exposure at 3 seconds, but it's still a bit, I think it's a bit flat. So I did another one, and that is 4 seconds. And you can just take a comparison. You can see there, it is greatly improved by giving it another second. And then finally was the hand painted development. You can see that's quite an interesting way of doing fashion prints. Well, I didn't think that'd happen. Absolute disaster. In less than a week, that's all come up. Can you see what I mean? So I can't put anything down there and be sure that it's in focus. Now I've started to cut this out. You can see how much it's bowed. I mean, you can see from the shadow there, that's a tremendous amount of bow, and that's just down to damp. I suppose you could call it a Mark II now. I did have to make a few alterations, so let's have a look at what I did and why I did them. So I haven't finished the draw unit now. I'm quite pleased with it. It runs very smooth, and I've also refitted the masking areas for 5x7, and it should work okay. I shall have to recalibrate it one more time, but after that I shouldn't need to do it ever again. I've got 4 of these screws, 2 on either side. They're the fixings for the lens plate. I've taken them out and adjusted the lens plate by about 1/4 of an inch. What's 1/4 of an inch? It's probably about the width of this screwdriver. If you want it in metric, you'll have to work it out. I'm still on imperial. Having done that, gave me the opportunity to go in, and just underneath the screws on either side I put 2 strips of this draft excluder tape. It's quite spongy and it allows me to fine-tune the focus on the lens. The light unit, I realised it didn't have to be that tall. I did a few experiments by adjusting the light up and down, and I could get away with probably about 4 inches tall, which meant that I could take 3.5 inches of it, and it wasn't making any difference to my diffusing screen, and it does make it look a bit more sensible and not top heavy. Anyway, that's it. Project finished. I've got a smaller light unit now that goes on the top there, so I think that improves the look of the thing, and the simplicity of just opening the drawer and popping your paper in there and getting your prints. And Oh yeah, I'm quite pleased with it at the end of the day. I think if I had built this in the 60s and I made it out of cheaper material, there'd have been a market for it. I'm sure I could have sold them. I think that Johnson's were using their very basic enlarger, and that was just doing postcards. And all of a sudden we've gone up to 5x7, and I think with a little bit of tweaking I could have actually got it up to 10x8. Remember, this is fixed focus, nothing to do, no problems, just put your negative in at the top, get a print out at the bottom, develop it, you've got a nice photographic print. Anyway, give us a tick if you liked it, and subscribe please, because I'm always coming up with crazy ideas. The next one I'm working on at the moment is I'm thinking of making a dark room in a box. That'll be an interesting project, especially if it works. Anyway, see you soon, I hope. Cheers.